The human soldiers were outnumbered. They'd expected a skirmish with a few alien stragglers at most, but the enemy had come in full force, massive, armored bodies stepping over the barren hills like dark giants. Even so, Commander John Harris stood his ground. No one had told him he had to be afraid. He pressed his palm against the cool metal of his communicator, his fingers trembling just slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of his thoughts. He'd fought in wars before, human wars, wars against humans, wars on Earth. But this was different. This wasn't some conventional battle. This was the real test. This was humanity's chance to prove that they were more than the sum of their parts. Do you see them? Sergeant Mallory's voice crackled over the comms. Harris blinked through his scope, the world magnified and distorted by the target lens. The alien troops moved with precision, advanced armor gleaming under the distant sun, rifles in hand. But there was something wrong. Something that hadn't quite clicked. "They're too calm," Harris muttered, lowering his weapon slightly. "Something isn't right. They're acting like they're hunting, not fighting." A strange, almost unnatural silence followed his words. Even the dust kicked up by the movement of alien boots seemed to hover in the air, still, as if time itself had briefly paused. Then, without warning, an explosion ruptured from the hillside, the ground shaking violently beneath their feet. "Get down!" Harris shouted, diving to the ground just as the blast shockwave rattled his bones. "Ambush!" Mallory screamed, rolling to the side, but it was too late. From every direction, the aliens descended, cloaked figures slipping between the trees, their camouflage technology rendering them nearly invisible. Their movements were calculated, swift, and eerily silent. Harris had expected this, the tactical advantage they'd gained from superior technology. But what he hadn't expected was how human they seemed. "We need cover," Mallory gasped, crouching behind a boulder as an alien soldier emerged from the brush, eyes gleaming with cold intelligence. Its rifle leveled straight at her head. But before it could fire, a bullet from Harris's rifle struck the soldier's chest, causing the alien to collapse into the dirt with a screech. "You're not getting away that easy," Harris muttered, stepping out from cover and advancing toward the enemy, his pulse quickening with the adrenaline. As he pushed forward, he noticed more soldiers, not unlike Mallory, caught in similar skirmishes. The aliens were methodical, coldly efficient, but they hadn't expected the humans to fight back so fiercely. Harris clenched his jaw. He could feel it now, there was something else behind their silent battle. Something more than just tactics or superiority. The battle continued to rage as alien soldiers were felled one by one, their coordinated strikes faltering as the humans rallied against them. Harris wasn't sure what had shifted, what had made the aliens falter, but he didn't care. His focus was on survival, on getting through this. Yet, the deeper truth gnawed at him. What was it that had made humanity's soldiers so relentless? He didn't have long to think, as another alien soldier appeared in front of him, its face distorted by the strange helmet that encased it. Without hesitation, Harris tackled it to the ground, both hands grabbing at the alien's throat. The soldier's struggle was fierce, but clumsy. Harris's raw strength outlasted the creature's will. "Not so tough without your toys, huh?" Harris spat, finally wrenching the alien's weapon away and kicking it into the dirt. As the alien gasped for air, its glowing eyes met his. There was something almost human in that look. Not fear, not rage, but confusion. It wasn't supposed to be this way. The aliens had been told that humans were easy prey. But now, they were learning something else, the thing that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. "You're not invincible," Harris whispered. Just then, the ground beneath their feet trembled again, but this time, it was different. The earth cracked open, revealing a massive underground bunker, brimming with alien technology. The ambush had been a decoy. The real fight had just begun. Harris stared down into the abyss, a strange chill creeping down his spine. It wasn't just the battle that worried him, it was the realization that this war wasn't just about who had the most firepower. It was about something deeper. Something that the aliens hadn't expected, hadn't prepared for. All units, fall back. Harris shouted. We need to regroup. But deep inside, he knew they weren't running from the aliens. They were running from something even more dangerous, the human spirit, the one thing the alien forces couldn't possibly anticipate. And that, in itself, was the most terrifying weapon in the universe. The underground bunker was a stark contrast to the chaos above. The metallic walls hummed with energy, and blinking lights cast an eerie glow over the deserted corridor. Commander Harris had never been one to feel disoriented, but standing in the belly of the beast, he could sense something larger unfolding, something that went beyond the fight. Commander, Mallory's voice sliced through the tension, drawing his attention. She stood at the entrance of the bunker's central chamber, her rifle lowered but still ready. You need to see this. Harris nodded, motioning for the rest of his squad to move up. The air inside felt colder, charged with an unspoken gravity. The hum of the alien tech, now palpable, seemed to pulse with a rhythm not unlike a heartbeat. It was almost as if the facility was alive. Inside the chamber, a massive holographic display lit up. It was a map of sorts, shifting continents, star systems, and a galaxy far beyond Earth's reach. But the map wasn't what caught Harris's eye. It was the symbols, unfamiliar yet strangely familiar, scattered across the star systems. Are these coordinates? Harris asked, stepping closer, his fingers brushing against the shimmering surface of the map. Mallory leaned in beside him. It's not just a map, sir. It's a plan. A strategic chart. Her voice had dropped to a whisper, as if afraid the walls themselves were listening. This is more than a battle. They're organizing something bigger. Bigger than a war? Harris frowned, his mind racing. What do they want from us? The answer came swiftly, uncomfortably clear. The enemy, whoever they were, had been planning an invasion. Not just of Earth, but of the entire solar system. Their mission wasn't to conquer, but to obliterate. A complete extermination of humanity. Sir. Mallory's tone was urgent now, her fingers tapping across a console. The map shimmered, and suddenly, a single, ominous word appeared in bold red letters: exterminate. Harris's heart thudded in his chest. He'd suspected it, but now the reality of it hit like a freight train. The war, the ambush, all of it, it wasn't just an attack. It was the beginning of humanity's final hours. I thought we were just defending Earth. Harris's voice had gone low, barely above a murmur. What the hell are they doing? We didn't know, Mallory replied softly, her eyes filled with disbelief. We thought they were here for resources, territory. We were wrong. Harris turned sharply, his mind already on the next move. We need to alert command. This isn't just about surviving this ambush anymore. We have to mobilize everything we've got. Sir, the comms are down. Mallory raised an eyebrow. I'm trying to restore contact, but the signals are being blocked. The entire system's been compromised. A chill ran down Harris's spine. If the aliens could control the communications, if they were already this embedded, then humanity was far more vulnerable than they'd realized. Commander, Lieutenant Davis's voice came through, crackling in the comms. We've got movement outside. More of them, heading this way. They must have figured out where we are. Damn it. Harris clenched his jaw, his fingers twitching toward his weapon. He had no intention of letting anyone, alien or human, catch them unprepared again. The others gathered around him, forming a tight circle. There was no question anymore. The bunker was no longer a sanctuary, it was a trap. We fight, Harris said, his voice steely, filled with the resolve that had carried humanity through countless battles before. We fight to the last. No retreat. No surrender. We've got their coordinates, sir, Mallory added, her fingers working swiftly across the console again. If we can get to the central core of this place, we can send a signal back to Earth. But it'll mean going through the heart of their operations. And you're sure that'll work? Harris asked, his gaze hardening. There's only one way to find out. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Harris could hear the hum of alien machinery getting louder, feel the vibrations in the walls as the enemy advanced, their footsteps almost synchronized with the pulse of the underground bunker. Mallory looked up at him, her expression unreadable. "Sir, we may not make it out of here." Harris met her gaze without flinching. "We'll make it. We always do." The squad moved out, weapons drawn, the heavy silence of the bunker broken only by the pounding of their boots. As they approached the core, the tension in the air thickened, each step a reminder of the stakes they faced. Harris didn't dare consider failure. Not this time. Not when the survival of humanity depended on what came next. They reached the central chamber, the door sliding open with a mechanical hiss. But the sight that greeted them wasn't what they expected. The room was empty. Completely, eerily silent. And then, from the shadows, the voice came, deep, metallic, but unmistakably human. "You think you're winning this?" The words sent a shiver through Harris's spine. "You said." Harris's hand hovered over his sidearm, the hum of alien technology vibrating through the floor beneath his boots. The shadows that had swallowed the central chamber flickered as someone, moved in the dark. The voice that had spoken was cold, calculating, with a quality that scraped against his nerves like nails on metal. "You think you're winning this?" The words seemed to hang in the air, thick with an unsettling sense of control. The squad tensed, weapons raised, but Harris held up a hand. "Identify yourself," he demanded, his voice unwavering. His mind raced. Was this a trap? A psychological tactic to weaken their resolve? The voice didn't answer immediately, but Harris could feel the pressure building, like a storm waiting to break. Mallory was beside him, her expression unreadable but alert, scanning the room with trained eyes. "I don't think you understand," the voice continued, the low growl almost tangible. "You are insignificant in the grand design. This war? This massacre? It's not yours to win." Harris clenched his fists, his frustration flaring. "We've been through worse," he growled. "We've beaten odds that no one thought possible." A flicker of movement, too quick for the human eye to catch, passed through the shadows. Then, in an instant, the room erupted into blinding light. Standing in the center of the room, half visible, was a figure draped in silver and black armor, the design foreign, sleek, and almost unnervingly elegant. Their features were obscured, but the air around them crackled with an oppressive energy. The alien, or whatever it was, stood still, its head slightly tilted as if studying them. Mallory stepped forward, her rifle trained on the figure. "Who the hell are you?" The figure didn't move, but Harris could feel the presence of their gaze, the weight of it pressing down on him. "I'm someone who's seen the end of countless species. Yours will be no different." "You've already lost," Harris spat, his voice laced with conviction. "We'll fight until the last breath." The figure's response was a soft, unsettling chuckle. "You misunderstand. It's not about what you can do. It's about what's already been set in motion. You're simply the last act in a play you can't control." The room seemed to shift, the walls vibrating with a low hum. Harris felt it in his chest, something deep, something that threatened to unravel everything. This wasn't just an alien. This was a leader, a strategist, a force to be reckoned with. Mallory's voice broke through the tension, sharp and clear. "You're wrong. Humanity isn't a plaything. We adapt, we evolve. And we fight back." The figure slowly began to move, stepping toward them with calculated precision. Its movements were graceful, yet there was an inherent danger in every step. Harris's hand tightened on his weapon, but the words that followed froze him in place. "Fight if you must," the figure said. "But your survival will be temporary. We have seen what lies beyond. And once we finish with you, there will be no memory of your existence." The weight of that promise hit Harris like a physical blow. He knew the enemy wasn't just here to conquer, they were here to erase every last trace of humanity's legacy. "You'll never wipe us out," Harris said, his voice low but steady, the fire in his chest burning brighter. "Not as long as we're breathing." The figure stopped, just out of arm's reach now. For a moment, the two stared at each other, the silence heavy with unspoken challenges. The figure tilted its head again, as if considering him, measuring the words in the air. "Breathe all you like," the figure finally said. "But we have made sure that your extinction is inevitable. Even if you fight, even if you survive the initial strike, we have prepared for your final downfall." Harris felt his resolve harden, the full weight of the battle ahead pressing on his shoulders. But there was something else now, something that flickered in his gut like the spark of a wildfire. The fight was no longer just about survival. It was about preserving humanity's soul, its spirit. They hadn't fought to the brink of extinction just to let an alien force snuff them out like a candle in the wind. "We don't give up," Harris said, his voice a challenge in itself. "And that's why you'll lose." Mallory stepped forward, placing a hand on Harris's shoulder. "Let's make sure of it, sir. We've got their coordinates. We have a chance." The figure's expression, still hidden behind the darkened visor, didn't change. "Your chances are slim. But go ahead. Try." The figure's hand moved to a control panel at its side, and before anyone could react, a sharp, whirring sound filled the air. The walls seemed to shift again, locking down with a mechanical grind. "They won't stop us," Harris said under his breath, more to himself than anyone else. The sudden surge of tension was palpable now, like the calm before a storm. The final confrontation was on the horizon, and it was clear, humanity's fight was far from over. Mallory turned, her voice sharp. "We need to move. Now." They had no time to waste. Harris led the charge, his mind already racing ahead to the next steps. The alien threat had just revealed its full hand, but Harris had no intention of folding. The metallic clang of the door slamming shut echoed in Harris's ears, the sound slicing through the stillness like a warning. His boots hit the floor with a purpose as he jogged down the narrow corridor, Mallory's steps light but firm behind him. The flickering lights overhead cast brief, stuttering shadows along the walls, but Harris barely noticed the uneven lighting. His focus was ahead, on the next move, on the path to survival. "We don't have much time," Mallory's voice cut through his thoughts, steady but laced with tension. "They've sealed off the entire sector. They're preparing for something." Harris didn't need to ask what something meant. The alien forces were notorious for their precision. Once they decided a race's extinction was inevitable, the end came swiftly, with no regard for negotiation or mercy. "I know," Harris said, not looking back. "We have to reach the control room and override the lockdown. If we don't, this entire station becomes our tomb." Mallory's quick breath was the only sound for a moment, before she responded, "I'm not ready to die just yet. I'll take point." With a sharp nod, Harris stepped aside, allowing her to move in front. As she did, the eerie quiet between them deepened, the weight of what was coming settling heavily on their shoulders. They both knew the risks. Still, neither of them had hesitated to move forward when the mission had come. The corridor twisted ahead of them, dim light pools stretching into blackened corners, as if the station itself was holding its breath. Harris's hand hovered near his weapon, his pulse quickening with every step. They were getting closer to the heart of the ship, to where their last hope for survival would be decided. Ahead, Mallory stopped abruptly. Harris drew closer just as she crouched down, her eyes scanning the floor. "Movement," she murmured. Harris's chest tightened, a cold shiver prickling along his spine. They were walking into a trap, he realized. Every step they took was another step toward facing the unknown, and the enemy was already setting the stage. "We can't go back now," Harris whispered, more to himself than to Mallory. He didn't need to hear a response to know she agreed. Mallory glanced back at him, her eyes flashing with resolve. "Let's finish it, then." They pressed forward. As they turned the final corner, the control room door loomed before them, massive and imposing, a barrier between them and the possibility of freedom. Harris took a breath and prepared himself for what was behind it. The door slid open with a low hiss, revealing a room bathed in pale, flickering light. The console at the center was already active, glowing with alien text. A figure stood at the far end of the room, the same one from before, the alien, draped in its unsettling, sleek armor, hands poised above the control panel. "I thought you'd make it this far," the alien's voice echoed in the chamber, cold and unyielding. Harris's heart hammered in his chest. There was no hesitation this time, no time for a standoff. The figure's back was to them, and this was their chance. He gestured for Mallory to take position at the door. "I won't let you win," Harris said, every ounce of defiance slipping into his voice. The alien's head snapped around, its gaze unnervingly focused on him. "You misunderstand. You're too late. The countdown has begun. You will never leave this station." A pulse of energy shot from the alien's hand, splintering the air between them. Harris dove to the side, Mallory right behind him. The beam struck the wall, causing it to crack and smoke. "Now!" Mallory yelled, her voice high with urgency. With a growl of frustration, Harris scrambled to his feet. He sprinted to the console, fingers flying over the keys. But the alien was already moving, no longer standing still, but circling them, anticipating every move. Harris could hear it now, the hum of something massive, something destructive. "This is your last chance," the alien warned. "You have no power here. There's nothing you can do." Harris gritted his teeth, his hands steady despite the adrenaline pumping through him. "We'll see about that." His fingers slammed down on the final sequence. The console lit up, its blaring alarm a cacophony in the small room. "No!" The alien lunged at him, but Mallory was quicker. She fired a shot, narrowly grazing the alien's side. The figure staggered back, eyes flashing with fury. It was a brief opening, but it was all they needed. "Get out of here!" Harris shouted, already moving toward the exit. Mallory didn't hesitate. Together, they ran, racing against the clock, the walls vibrating as the station's systems began to tremble. Harris could feel it, the countdown was no longer just an alarm. It was a threat. The ship was ready to implode. But this wasn't the end. Harris knew it. They had forced their hand, but the alien's game wasn't over. Not yet. As the station shook around them, Harris's heart pounded, but his mind remained clear. They weren't done. This was just the beginning.